Todd with Todd's Dodge Garage. We're on another project here today. This is not actually my car. This is one of the cars that I have in my shop. It's a 66 Charger. We've rebuilt the gauge cluster. Everything is checked out. The fuel gauge is not reading correctly. So we are going to remove the sending unit and test that and check into why the gauge isn't reading properly, if the sending unit is out of calibration or what. Let me show you what we have here. So this is a 66 Charger. I have it up in the air. You can do this on your back, but it kind of sucks. There is the fuel tank sending unit, and we're going to go ahead and remove it from the car today. This is how we're going to remove the fuel tank sending unit out of a B-body. So right now, I'm just unplugging the sending unit wire that runs up to the back of the gauge. So you want to make sure you have continuity. I mean, if you have a fuel gauge problem and your gauge has been rebuilt, obviously you want to check continuity from this end of the wire to the gauge. We have already done that in the past, so I know this wire is good. There's no breaks in it. It's not grounded out anywhere. So I'm just unplugging the fuel line at this point. So that's all I've done now is taking the fuel line off, taking the sending unit wire off. Now we're just taking the lock ring off. And hopefully, okay, I will make sure the fuel level is not above the sending unit, or you have a problem very fast. Okay. Let me grab you here. So I just did this in real time, actually. There was no editing. I mean, it took me 2 minutes to get out. Now, this car has been restored, so I'm not dealing with your typical rust issues that most of us are going to deal with. And obviously, if you're on your back, on a pair of jack stands, it's going to take a lot longer than, 3 minutes to do. So I'm going to go ahead and check out this sending unit. I've got to ohm it out and see where we're at. Let me go ahead and test the sending unit and see where we get, and then I'll be back with you. So really, this tool is a lifesaver. That removes the lock ring, and there's what you're left with. So I'll be back. Yes, I'm crouching down because of the angle of the camera. So I've got the sending unit out, as you saw, and what I'm going to show you now is how to test the sending unit, because what you have to do is ohm it out to make sure that the resistance values are correct for the full reading, the half reading, and the empty reading. So I'm going to show you that right now. So here is the sending unit that you saw me remove from the tank. I've got my multimeter, and I mean, even a cheap one will work. You don't need to spend any money on this. You just simply set it to ohms. And you have to ground it. So your black lead is going to go to the body of the sending unit, okay? Your red lead is going to go to the signal side or the stud. And then you're going to get a reading on your meter. And right now with this out of the car, I'm reading empty. The float would be in the empty position. And I'm reading 75 ohms of resistance. What I'm working on now is a car in my shop. So this is not my own car. So now I am switching faces. This is me being professional and doing what I do on customers' cars. So this is treated differently than the do-it-yourselfer than I would do on my car, but this is still the same principle. If you're having a fuel gauge issue or a coolant gauge issue or an oil pressure issue, you have to ohm out the sending unit somehow. With the fuel gauge, it's very simple. You have to remove the sending unit and then just ground it out and see what it reads at the various readings. So holding my leads on a unit, I'm getting 74.9 ohms of resistance at empty. Well, for the charger, the first gen, well, actually, if I go all the way down, holy smokes, I'm at 80.5. So it's close. For a first gen charger, 73 ohms is the empty resistance reading. 22.8 is half, and 9.6 is full. And so as we swing this up to the full, my resistance values are going to change. Now what I'm getting is 8.8 ohms at full. So not quite enough, but close. You can tweak that a little bit by bending the arm, because in other words, where the arm is, you know, if this is full, you could bend the arm a little bit to adjust that. Or you can tweak the arm, the stops that are on the sending unit. You don't have a lot of play. I mean, it's not technically adjustable, but you could bend this arm up or down slightly so that the float is going to react or be at a different level, if you get what I'm saying. So the primary concern was that this sending unit was in fact working. It is close enough that it should get the gauge to register. And so we were having a problem with the gauge registering. Now, we have enough fuel in the tank that it should register. So is that telling me that the arm is bent too far up and it needs to be down more so that it's reading the level of the fuel? That's kind of a trial and error sort of a thing. I'm not going to lie to you. There's no, I mean, if you know you have 5 gallons in your tank, and it's a 19-gallon tank, which is what the first gen charger is, and that is the same as the Coronets. You know, if you're going to go a quarter tank, I'll just say 18 gallons. So, you know, 4.5 gallons roughly, I mean, quarter tank, whatever, call it close enough. And then you know that should be quarter. So if you have this swing, there's full, there's empty, and you put it on a 360-degree axis, and then you figure out how many degrees you need to have this up, which would be quarter tank, or just divide this out. That would be quarter. Then you put that there. That's where your float should be at in the tank with the amount of gallons that you have. So, I mean, if you have a quarter tank and it's reading up here, I mean, this thing is bent so far down, it's ridiculous, and vice versa. This particular one, I can see a bend in it, and so it is bent down the wrong way incorrectly. So we're simply going to bend this arm, make an adjustment, and then we're going to try it. Again, there's no scientific data sheet that will tell you how to do this. It is literally trial and error. I have a pretty good idea because I know how much fuel is in the tank. I put the fuel in the tank. And where this should be reading. So with that, we're going to go ahead and put this back in the car now. So I'm going to bring you with me, try to do this real time. Because again, I don't want a lot of editing. I'm trying to show, you know, even though this is a professional shop doing this, because now I'm on the restoration side, not my own cars. When a car comes into my shop, I want to show I mean, the process that we go through to do this. So I think that's good. It's hard to tell. So bear with me. Now, you just have to weasel this in very carefully. I mean, you spin it around and, you know, it goes in. And it really will only go, it'll seat kind of one way. Of course, you got the wire for the sending unit, the signal wire. You got to get your tool in here. Now you can use a screwdriver, and that's fine. And there we go. Sounds like a lot of noise and bashing around, but you're really not. It's quite a bit harder on your back. And if you've done it before, that helps. I just happen to have done it before. But you can certainly do it if you haven't. So we've got the sending unit installed again. We'll go ahead and lower the core down and see if we get any different reading. So we're going to call this fixed. I know this may be hard to see, but if you look at the needle on the fuel gauge, it's registering. Before, it never came off of the resting position, which I just turned the car off, so the needle's going to make its way. It will rest. And it will actually go to the left side of that line after it relaxes and the gauge cools down internally. And that would be about right for the amount of fuel that's in the car. But that is, in essence, on a B-body, whether it's a first-gen Charger, whether it's a Coronet or Roadrunner, doesn't really make any difference. And actually, all the Mopar lines are semi-similar in that instance. Different tank configurations, this and that. But on a B-body Charger, that is how you take the fuel tank sending unit out, test it, diagnose it, and put it back in. This is Todd's Dodge Garage, and thank you. Till next time, take care and have fun with your cars.